On today's episode of my Isolation podcast, I'll finally be talking about TMNT Mutant Mayhem. Is it as good as its 96% crit score suggests, or should these heroes in a half shell go back to the sewer for 7 more years? Listen in and find out. And hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of my Isolation podcast. And today we'll be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. So as you heard there, I've got a new, started to do little intros for these episodes, along with a new opening music as well. Just doing little experimentations, just tweaking shit. Basically, but yeah, the song I used for this one, I got it from royalty-free music. I'll leave a link down in the description below so you can find the artist's music page because he's a very good composer. And yeah, so for now, let's get into it. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they've got a new movie coming out. That's out now and still in cinemas for you guys to look at and enjoy if you want to. So Teenage Mutant Turtles Mutant Mayhem, it's based on, I think everyone at this point knows who the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are. I think a lot of people grew up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, particularly 80s kids, but even 2000s kids, or, we've had a different variation of, it's like Scooby-Doo. There's always been a new version of these characters every, God knows, every 7 years or something like that, I want to say. So yeah, and obviously they've had a ton of different, movie variations over the years as well. So I'm just going to quickly go into my own personal history with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've never really been a big fan of them. When I was a kid, I was born in 1995, so I don't know if Turtle Mayhem was dialing down, or maybe starting to dial down or something like that around that time. Or maybe the show had ended by that time. I'm not too sure. But I never really knew about the Teenage Mutant Turtles until the 2003 cartoon series came out. And I remember watching a few episodes of that and thinking it was just being like, what's this? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? This is stupid. So I wasn't really aware of the lore and the backstory and the rich kind of history these characters have. It wasn't until I started going on YouTube a lot more and I came across James Rolfe, who you all know as Angry Video Game Nerd. He was a big Turtles fan back in the day, and I think back in, I want to say 2011, during the summer of 2011 he did a series called Turtle Tuesday, where every Tuesday of that summer he would talk about something related to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, whether it be about whether it was a giant retrospective of the show, or about the DVDs not being in the right order, or about talking about the Michael Bay film, because that had just been announced around that point. So him talking about with Mike Rattay about what they would want from a new Ninja Turtles movie back then, and also talking about the original graphic novels that started it all. So after that, I decided, okay, well, I think it's a bit too late for me to get into the TV show. Around that point, I was about 2011. I would have been about at least 15. I want to say, 15. Yeah, 15. Yeah, I was around 15. But I did decide to check out the movies because I remember James talking about the movies, and again, they're uploaded like the Mario Brothers live action film. They're uploaded in multiple parts on YouTube, and I gave them a watch. And so what I'm going to do now is quickly talk about my thoughts about all the other movies, except for the only ones I'm leaving out are any made-for-TV movies. Turtles Forever, the kind of crossover between the 2003 and 80s cartoon. I'm not going to be talking about that one. I'm not going to be talking about any straight DVD movies. So Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes, that was a thing that came out in 2019. I'm not talking about that one. I'm also not talking about any straight streaming movies. So Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, which came out last year. I want to say, it was either last year or 2021. not going to talk about not going to be talking about that either. I'm only going to be talking about the theatrical Turtle movies that that they released in theaters. The only one I'm not going to be talking about is the last movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Out of the Shadows, because I never got around to watching that, which I'll explain why in a little bit. So I'm going to be as quick as I can, breezing over all the other movies. Starting off with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990, the very first live action one back in the day. At least I think it was 1990. Let's see. Yeah, it was 1990. The 1990 live action Ninja Turtles movie, where it was guys in suits. Overall, I still really enjoy this movie. I think it's a really good 90s film. It's got a very good kind of gritty kind of edge to it. It feels like it kind of feels like, because obviously, like I said, like the Mario Brothers movie, the live action one kind of felt like it was trying to be the big kid kind of version of that series, and that ended up just not working out. But for this movie also did that as well, and it did it perfectly. I think because the Teenage Ninja Turtles already had a kind of adult, with the graphic novels, they already kind of had that adult edge to them anyway. And obviously the first movie in particular takes a lot of stuff from the first few issues of the graphic novels. I still enjoy this movie. I still think it's pretty good. It's a pretty solid time. The action's pretty good. A little basic, but it was the 90s and there were guys in suits. There's only so much you can do with that. I like the gritty tone. I think the cast is really solid. I like Shredder in this movie. I do find him quite intimidating and quite scary at points as well. I do think there's quite a lot of good kind of powerful moments as well, like when they come back home and they find that their home's been raided by the Foot Clan and Splinter's gone, and Raphael just lets out that big massive scream, and it's just like, oh man, that was a scary thing. That was proper scary, that. But also quite heartbreaking as well, because seeing this animatronic breakdown was, it's always going to break your heart, really. And speaking of which, the big thing that I think everyone can agree on that is great for this is the animatronics. The animatronics made by the Jim Henson Company, who obviously, they did the Muppets and the Star Wars animatronics as well. They did the animatronics for the first two movies, I believe, and then the third movie was somebody else. Another animatronics company. But yeah, obviously, the Jim Henson work guys, they did a very good job with these suits. These suits look fucking fantastic. They look great. They look they just look proper good. Like they look really good. They move really well. The masks, the heads and everything, they look really good. Obviously, they're not aged well because a few of them did pop up on eBay in really rough condition. But they look great. They're really there. And again, movies like this kind of show why we need more practical effects and not just rely heavily on CG all the time. Because these suits. We'll get to the Michael Bay films in a minute. Well, 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever how long it takes me to get there. But we have the Michael Bay films where they're all CG and they look like they're not. You can tell they're not really there. Really, but with these animatronic suits, you can tell they're there. They're there, but they also look way more better and just way more real. They look more realistic than the Michael Bay ones. The Michael Bay ones just look like PS2 cutscenes. But these ones look real. They look spectacular. The Jim Henson Company did a really good job with them. They're expressive. The masks are cool. They're great in the action sequences. So the first 99's movie is a classic. I think people, if you haven't watched it in a while, you should give it another try because it is a pretty good time. The second film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: Secret of the Ooze, as they say in this new film. It's all right. It's not a bad film by any means necessary. Obviously, because of all the violence and the darker tone of the first movie, a lot of parents complained and they had to tone that shit down. This one feels a lot more family friendly kind of thing, which is okay. The animatronics are back and they look as great as ever. The voices are good for the animatronics again. I don't know which ones got replaced and I can't remember which actors came back from the first and which actors got replaced from the first. I know the actress that played April got replaced, which I didn't even know until recently. I was like, oh, I didn't even notice that. But yeah, the cast is solid enough, and Toka and Raza are really good. It's a shame they couldn't do Bebop and Rocksteady, because that would have been cool to see them in a more practical kind of form animatronic kind of form, but apparently they couldn't get the rights to the characters, which is bizarre. Like how I don't know how that works. But Tucker and Raz are fine, and some of the comedy is really good, and there's also some funny moments as well, like the Vanilla-Ice ninja rap, go ninja go, that's always going to be a classic, that's a classic cheesy 90s song, and personally I love it. And the action's still pretty good, regardless. There's also what's the name of the kid character from the second one? Let me just quickly bring it up. Secret of the Ooze. Who? Let's see here. Let's see here. Can't seem to. Kino. That's it. Yeah, Kino was also a decent character. Pizza delivery boy. I think there was like rumors running around that he heavily inspired. There was a fifth turtle that in the cartoon that people claim that Kino inspired, but I don't know. I've not really heard any things about that. I remember James Rolfe mentioning that in his retrospective. But Kino was a pretty decent character. Shame he doesn't come back in any of the sequels, but the last sequel, which we'll talk about in a second. But overall, Secret of the Ooze is a pretty decent time. Again, if you've not seen it in a while, I recommend giving it another try. It's not bad. It's a pretty decent, fun time, and it'll be a good nostalgia trip for you if you loved it as a kid. Then after that, we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, which it's shit. It's fucking shit. I tried watching it. I couldn't get past the 20 minutes. It's terrible. It's shit. Like it's stupid. It's just the animatronics look fucking terrible. In this, they look like Chuck E. Cheese. Like cheap, they look really cheap compared to the Jim Henson ones, which were, which looked great, but these ones just looked really bad, just really cheap. The humor was just terrible. The wet willy time, like what was that? I wouldn't even recommend watching this one. Just go watch James Rolfe's review, the one where he, slashes it slashes in half with a sword. Just go watch that and you'll find out why it's bad. I tried watching it once. I couldn't get past the first 20 minutes. It was just so bad. And those animatronics, they just take you out of it. They really do take you out of it. I know how upon about, we need practical effects, because we do, but we need good practical effects. We need practical effects that look good, that look pleasing. But yeah, so yeah, the third film is just dumb. Just don't go back to that one. Leave it for another day. If you fancy a guilty pleasure or just fancy watching a bad Turtles movie, just watch that one. But if you want to watch a good Turtles movie, don't watch that one. Teenage Mutant Turtles 3 is just terrible. And then after that, 15 years later, I believe it was 15 years. Anyway, we got another film, simply just called TMNT. This one was animated. And surprisingly, it was actually apparently a kind of a pseudo sequel to the new one, to the live action trilogy. Surprisingly, apparently it was made in 2007. It was made by apparently it's a standalone sequel. Which was a production company? It was an animated company. How do you pronounce that? Maggie and Amagi Animation Studios, I think that's how it's pronounced. So they made this movie. It was a standalone sequel to the original live action trilogy. So this is technically the fourth one. There was supposed to be a fourth live action movie called The Next Mutation, where they were going to get like multiple different powers, but that didn't happen in the end, obviously because of TMNT 3's just piss poor reception, I guess, and probably didn't do that well at the box office, I imagine. But probably also it did sound a bit too expensive, a bit too ambitious, like them getting like different powers and everything. So we got this one instead. 15 years later, TMNT from 2007, computer animated superhero movie. And I watched this movie and I thought it was pretty good. It's got flaws. Don't get me wrong, they've got flaws. It's got flaws, mainly because it's based on, I believe it's inspired by one of the episodes from the 2003 cartoon, which Leonardo has to go away somewhere for training. I remember that because I remember that specifically because I do remember catching that episode on Toonatic at one point. Anyone here who remembers remembers what Toon Anarch was, yeah, you are that old. We're old. We're old, basically. I'm very old. Yeah, I'm very old. I remember watching that episode, and I think that must have been the episode that they used as inspiration for this movie. But there is some downsides to it as well, where like they don't really explain a whole lot. Like they don't explain the gap between because this is supposed to be a sequel to the first 3 live action films, but don't really explain the gap between them. What the Turtles have been up to, why Leonardo go for training, exactly. Why does Raph hate him? It's a weird time. It's not a weird time, but it does kind of be like, okay, well, what's happened here? There's some of the animation as well. While it does look good, it hasn't. The animation's a bit weird for this one. I'll admit that. It looks fine for what it is. I'm glad that they took the the designs from the first 2 films and kind of put them in animation. But there are times when this clearly not aged very well, and there are times when it looks like a video game. It really does look like a video game at points, which is very distracting. Very distracting. But overall, I do like the story, even though they don't explain why Leo had to go away for training. I do like the cast as well. I think I'm glad that they actually got proper voice actors to voice the Turtles, and they kind of made all the the celebrities like Chris Evans, Sarah Michelle Gellar, and all Kevin Smith. Oh, Kevin Smith is in this. Damn, I forgot about that. Patrick Stewart. That they're all kind of secondary characters to the main voice cast. They actually, because they used actual voice actors. They hired voice actors to do a voice actor's job in a animated movie, which is crazy because studios don't really do that anymore, do they? They mostly get celebrities to do that shit for them, which yeah. But overall, TMNT from 2007. Again, I do like it for what it is. And if you haven't seen this movie in a while, I do recommend checking this one out. I do recommend checking it out. What I do not recommend you check out though is the next film that we're going to talk about, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2014. It's just this movie. It's terrible. It's just terrible. It's so bad. It just doesn't make any sense. The whole kind of plot, the way that the plot is structured is it's just bad, man. It's just bad. It's just bad. Like the story doesn't make much sense. It was very clearly salvaged with reshoots, and you could really tell. Like the fact that like Shredder was supposed to be this guy called Schrader, but they obviously changed that last minute. Megan Fox, she does alright with what she's given as April O'Neil, but she does alright with the work she's given, but what she's given isn't very good. The idea of trying to connect them to connect her to the Turtles is just, I don't know, it just ruins the whole. Like the whole appeal to that story was that April suddenly found them, and she stumbled across them by accident. That was the appeal of that story, and now it's like, oh no, she actually knew them when she was a kid. Her dad worked on them, and everything, and it's like, God. And this movie had a lot of like drama surrounding it as well, particularly when when this movie got first announced, there were going to be aliens, and then there was that first rough draft of script which came out where it claimed that they were going to be from Dimension X. Krang was going to be in this at one point, but obviously he got removed. And obviously they didn't go with that in the end. I think Michael Bay said something like, "Oh, the Mugen is going to be from aliens, but they'll still be turtles," and it's like, but even that got scrapped. They went through a ton of this movie must have gone through a ton of rewrites. And then obviously, like I said, there was a ton of reshoots as well, and it's just bad. And those turtle designs, don't get me wrong, I think the VFX artist that did the designs for these turtles, he very recently came out and said how he always ends up getting harassed on Twitter for having to do these like designs for the turtles. Don't do that. Don't harass him. Don't do stupid posts where they're like, oh look, I did a much better job than what this professional VFX artist did, and it's like, don't do that. That's first of all, that's a very dickish move to do. Like VFX workers are like treated like garbage in the film TV industry. Like they're literally treated like garbage. Like we've had so many VFX artists recently, particularly ones who work for Marvel, who have come out of the woodwork and have literally stated that the conditions that they are working are just not stable. They don't have a union. They're trying to form they're trying to form a union at the moment, which is great because if anyone needs a union in the film and TV industry, it is the VFX workers. They're overworked, they're underpaid. Sometimes they even though they work on some of the biggest movies in the world, they end up filing bankruptcy. Like the studio that did the Sonic movie and the Lion King remake, they filed for bankruptcy. They went bankrupt. I believe they filed for bankruptcy because they were so like massively underpaid. They're not treated very well. So, and again, the VFX artists, they don't really get to decide on how they're going to design this. They get given they get given concept art. They get given concept art stuff, and the producers and stuff like kind of give them these pieces of concept art, and they're like, make that for me. And they sort of just have to go along with it, really. Like it was the same thing with the Sonic movie, that original design from Sonic, where the animators they were just given sketches and stuff, and that's the character they had to create, and they ended up getting the flack for it, even though there wasn't really their choice. So a lot of VFX stars don't actually get to decide on what the character kind of looks like. They sort of get told by the studios, this is what we want them to look like, and they sort of have to create them based on what the producers and the filmmakers tell them to describe to them, basically. And so this idea of harassing VFX artists or doing posts where they're like, look, I corrected it, I did a better job than this VFX artist, that's a dickish move, don't do that. But that being said, these designs do look really bad. The faces are just terrible. They look like big fucking tanks, which is just why? Like they're too big. They're too massive. All this extra clutter they've got on their like shells and everything, it's just weird. And again, they just look very uncanny. They look very uncanny valley. Like I feel sorry for the VFX artists because they would have to look like this every day and just go, why am I designing this? When I could be designing better designs, basically. The voice cast do alright with what they're given. Johnny Knoxville is okay. Leonardo. The actor that played Raph, that voiced Raph, actually, he actually spoke out a few years ago about Alan Richardson. He spoke out a few how badly treated they were on set. Because the whole motion capture thing, the producers were able to find loopholes, so they didn't have to give them food, they didn't have to get them off the set, off the clock, because most of the time if they were in motion capture, they would have to get them off on time, otherwise they'd have to pay them overtime. But because they were technically motion captured, they were doing motion capture, they could have just left them in the set for as long as possible. And it's they were just treated very badly, and this movie's just a mess. It's a terrible film. I wouldn't recommend you watch it. It's just terrible. It's just bad. Even the action's not that great. It's just bland and boring and just yeah. And then we had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. I didn't watch this one. I didn't like the 2014 film that much. I just did not bother with this one. I hear from fans that apparently it's a lot better than the last one, than the 2014 one. And I'll believe on that one. I do like the fact that they brought in more people from the cartoon. I like how Krang finally got his live action debut, even though I would have kind of preferred if he was an animatronic puppet rather than just a CG blob. And people on Rocksteady, it was good that they had things in there, I guess from the comics, from the 80s cartoon specifically. But I mean, again, I just wasn't interested in seeing it, and I guess a lot of people weren't because it didn't do very well at the box office. It did fine, but it didn't make enough for them to greenlight go ahead with the planned third film that they were going to do. And then after that, 7 years go by, and I believe it was 7. Yeah, 7 or 8 years go by without a new Turtle movie. We get a new Turtle TV show, like we had the 2012 show, and then we had Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and of course we had Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Turtles. But in terms of a full theatrical film, 7 years went by without one. 7 years went by without one, and then in 2020 we finally got the announcement of this new film that we're finally going to go around talking about today, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Seth Rogen was attached to produce it, and he was also writing it as well. it was going to lean into the more teenage aspect about the characters, meaning that they were actually going to be voiced by teenagers. And then obviously, concept art gets revealed, and also ends up leaking online. They've got this cool kind of Spider-Verse kind of feel to it. The trailers come out with that song, "Can I kick it?" Like that. That was pretty cool. Looked really good. The film was looking really, really good, really solid time. And overall, I went to go see it a few weeks ago. And overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good movie. I can understand why it's got the critical reception that it's got. I mean, this is the best critically received Turtles movie ever made. Like, it's 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Even the 9 movies is only on 40, I want to say. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes as well is pretty high, 91%, which is really good. And overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was charming. I thought the animation was great. I loved the comedy. I thought the cast was great. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But yeah, I thought that was really good. And overall, I did really enjoy this movie. I thought it was a pretty solid time and it was charming. It was a fun, charming animated film that brought kind of the heart and soul from the Turtles franchise. And I think fans are enjoying this movie for what it is. But I feel like if you're not a Turtles fan or you're a casual fan, you'll still get a kick out of this. It's a great movie. It's a great kind of jumping on point for any newcomers. And overall, it's just a really fun time. So let's get into why. But before we do that, spoiler warning. This is a very quick spoiler warning. I'm getting better at incorporating these into these podcasts. But yeah, spoiler warning. I'm going to be talking about spoilers in here. I'm not doing any spoiler-free shit. No, we're diving straight into the spoilers in this movie. So if you've not seen this movie yet, get the fuck out, go see the film, come back and listen in to what my spoiler thoughts are. Or if you don't give a fuck about spoilers, then feel free to stick around if you want to. But yeah, go see the movie, come back, and yeah. So after that, let's get into this movie. Let's talk about the animation first, which is kind of the thing that I think everyone's going to talk about. Obviously, this is a very kind of Spider-Verse looking movie. It was inspired by Spider-Verse, which that style has been popping up everywhere. That style has really caught on really well because it's a good style. It's interesting. It's unique. It's new, and you can experiment really well with it. And apparently it's actually not that expensive to produce. It's actually quite cheap. It's a good style that doesn't cost a lot of money and looks really pretty. And that's why we've seen so many good movies. Using that. You've got the Spider-Verse movies. We have Mitchell's vs. the Machines, which I actually watched not that long, a couple of weeks ago, and I really enjoyed that. Actually, I think Jeff Rowe directed it, if I remember correctly. Let me just quickly look that up. Well, he was a co-director on it. Excuse me. He was a co-director on Mitchell's versus the Machines, and the new Puss in Boots film, Puss in Boots: The Last Witch, which I finally got around to watching. I finally was able to get a copy of it on Blu-ray. I watched it a few weeks ago, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'll try and do an episode on that at some point, because I do want to talk about that movie because that movie is really good, and I did say I was going to talk about it at some point. I was going to go see it in the cinema, but the day that I was going to go see it, they were sold out. I literally walked into the View, which was down the road from where I was living, and they were like, yeah, we're out of tickets for Puss in Boots 2, and I was like, fuck. So I had to wait to buy it on DVD, and I eventually got around to buying it on DVD, and really enjoyed it. I'll try and do an episode on it at some point. But yeah, the animation was really good. I liked how this one, it was inspired by Spider-Verse, but it didn't feel like a copy, if that makes any sense. It had its own kind of style to it. It had its own right style to it, and its own flair and its own flavor to it as well. By encouraging animators to draw them as rough as possible. Make it look unfinished, make them look imperfect, because obviously this movie's leaning more into the teenage aspect of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which it took a damn while for them to get around to that. But yeah, make it look unfinished, make it look imperfect, make it look kind of rough. So it had that kind of so it looked like teenagers had drawn this movie. It's meant to represent drawings that you'd have done on the on the sides of your maths books, which or on the cover of your maths books, which a lot of kids in my school did that a lot. That would do like cool like little designs on the front cover of their like maths books and stuff like that. And it looked great. It didn't feel like Copy of Spider-Verse. It had its own feel to it, which added its own kind of charm to the film, and it also helped with the kind of theme of isolation and wanting acceptance from the world, which they lean very heavily into in this movie, which I really appreciated and really enjoyed. The character designs as well I thought were really great. I liked how the Turtles in here were kind of, because mainly when the Turtles go to live action, at least in the previous movies, and even in some of the animated stuff as well, they have quite a bulk kind of design to them. Like even the animatronic Turtles had a kind of bulky kind of design to them as well. And this one they're a little bit more slender, I would say. They're not as bulky as they were in the past, which is why I quite like. Again, add a new perspective to it. And I thought all the other ones as well, like all the mutants were designed really well. People from Rocksteady, Marco Gecko, the Fly, Superfly, was also looked really cool. All the other mutants as well, like let me grab the character selection here. Let's see here. So we've got Leatherhead, Wingnuts, Baxter Stockman as well. Also looked really cool. I really liked his design, how he kind of had resembled this really kind of lonely kind of character, which is what I really liked. Shocked that he got killed in the beginning, but because he's voiced by Gus from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which I'm not gonna I'm just not gonna pronounce the actor's name because I do not want to. I've got a feeling if I try pronouncing that name, I'm gonna butcher it to death. So I'm not gonna I'll probably gonna avoid doing that. But yeah, no. I hope he does come back though, because he's a great actor as well, and I wouldn't mind because there's obviously rumors running around that he might be playing Magneto or Professor X when Marvel gets around to rebooting the X-Men franchise. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think he'd be great. I want to see him in a Marvel product. He's a great actor. Put him something Marvel. Come on. We all know you've been talking. Like, come on. We all know you've been talking. So Austin Post or not Austin Post. Sorry, Post Malone. Post Malone as a Ray Phillip. Austin Post. That's his real name. That was really good as well. Genghis Frog was also really good as well. Jackie Chan as Splinter. Splinter was also a great design as well. I loved how Splinter felt more like a father figure in this than any other Turtle movie as well. And I'm glad that they've been doing that a little bit more recently, where they've been having him be more of a parent to the Turtles rather than being a mentor or a sensei to the Turtles. But I liked how he was basically in dad mode the entire time, how he's very protective over his sons because they're all he has. He's a very lonely rat. Then these Turtles found him. They came up to him, and they were the only things that in his life that didn't try and kill him or thought he was weird or thought he was disgusting or any of that stuff. So you really felt their bond as well. April's design was fine. There was some controversy around it, which I don't care about that. I thought April's design was all right. It was fine. It wasn't worth whining about, to be honest. And yeah, I liked how April as well herself was a teenager in this one, which I think a lot of the more recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon series have been doing recently. I think Rise of Teenage Ninja Turtles have done that, and the 2012 show, I think, also did that as well, making her a teenager along with the Turtles, which is good because, it gives them it allows her to connect with the Turtles on a much more kind of almost deeper level in a way, because, they're all teenagers, they're all going through the same kind of emotions and mood swings and stuff like that. And similar problems as well. Despite the fact that the Turtles live in the sewer and she lives on the surface. And speaking of which, let's go to the plot of the movie. The plot of the film was also very good, as I said before, and I love the how it really did focus on the Turtles, their loneliness, and they're willing to be accepted into society. The other movies, they touched on it a little bit, but they never really focused on it. It was like it would be mentioned. It was usually mentioned briefly in like passing or in a piece of throwaway dialogue. I think I heard that apparently Out of the Shadows kind of focused on that a bit more, But I didn't really watch that movie, so I've got no idea. But even then, I'm just gonna assume it wasn't done very well because those Michael Bay produced films weren't very good, in my opinion, anyways. Well, the first one wasn't. The second one I never saw, so I can't say. But the first one was definitely not a good movie. They tried their best with it, and all the power to them. They worked really hard and they tried their best with that movie. But overall, just the final product just ended up not doing very good, being very good. But no, yeah, I love the theme of isolation and the theme of wanting to be accepted into society, and how this one truly focused on that. And that was kind of the Turtles' arc, and how they go after Superfly because if we go after Superfly, we save the city, everyone will think we're cool, and we can do what we want. Because they want to go to high school, they want that teenage experience. That they've been shut in their whole lives, and and Splinter, he tried taking them out to the surface once and didn't go very well. So he very clearly is like, no, you can't leave. I need to protect you. And he's become this very kind of overprotective kind of father figure. And I do love how that kind of had him. How that he overlaid with Superfly. In a way, Superfly was very overprotective of his mutants. He was but for opposite reasons. He was like, oh no, we're going to kill the mutants. No, kill the humans. Sorry, we're going to kill the humans and the mutants. We're going to rule the earth. They're never going to like us. And it was through his actions that Splinter realized who he was becoming, and he was like, I don't want to be like that. So he wants. So in the end, he wants his sons to be accepted so they can go to high school. I love how that's literally their end goal. Their end goal is to go to high school, which I think is really new and interesting and fresh, because a lot of times, you'll get these movies where the teenagers want to be anywhere but high school. They don't want to be in high school. They want to be out of high school. You get movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which was actually in this movie. That was the film that they were watching when they went to the watching the movie in the park with all the other humans, but they were on the rooftop as well, which is weird. How I don't know why that very big coincidence that came into my head. But yeah, so I loved how the fact that they were trying really hard to their main goal, their main want in this film is to just go to high school, which I thought was really unique and quite refreshing to see. And obviously, yeah, Splinter's overprotective parentness I thought was a really great plot development, and his arc of learning to let go of his sons and allow them to explore the world and take the world into their own hands. Not into their own hands, but experience it in their own way. I also really liked how in this one, Raph and Leonardo and Raphael did not have a big brotherly kind of struggle with them, because there's always, in most of the Turtle movies, they've always got this weird conflict between the two of them as well. I mean, Raph and Leo have always had a bit of a rocky relationship, but it did get to the point where by the time we got to the 2014 film, it was like, oh god, we're doing this again. So it was quite refreshing to see Raph them not really go down that path with Raph and Leo. And obviously, yeah, Raph does say stuff like, oh, I love you guys, but I don't want to be around you all the time. I want to be around new people. But it's not done in a way where he's being spiteful towards his brothers or anything like that. It's just done as those are just like very little jokes to make the audiences laugh. And yeah, so the connection. I like that connection with April as well. Again, I like the fact that that April was a teenager in this one as well. So the fact that she was able to connect with them on a deeper level, but also have her own kind of problems. How she was sick in front of her school, and they were kind of calling her names. How she was puking all the time, and everything. How she kind of had to try and get over that hurdle in her life and get over that kind of social anxiety, that nervousness that you have when you're a teenager, and how she was going after Superfly because people wouldn't focus on that anymore. And yeah, so I like that aspect about her character, and how she woven into the plot. I do like the other mutants as well, like Superfly I really liked. I get Fly was a really great, almost threatening villain. Ice Cube did really well in that role. Like he was funny, like he always is, but he was also quite. They also did lean into he did feel quite threatening at points, like during some of the action sequences, or how like during the final sequence when he's attacking the city, he did feel like a big threat that the Turtles had to like go after and stop him. And yeah, I also really like that scene where he straight up kills those guys in the van. It's like that shocked me completely. I was like, what the fuck? Just like, damn, this movie's going hard. um, it reminded me a little bit of that scene from Jurassic World, where Dennis gets killed in by that dinosaur. Like that dinosaur sneaks into the car, and and you can tell he gets eaten by a dinosaur because the car's rocking back and forth. And yeah, like it reminded me of that scene. It was quite creepy, and yeah, he was very scary and creepy at certain points. I also quite liked the fact they were able to tie in the company, that the TCRI Ooze company as well, and the fact that she was playing Maya Rudolph was playing Cynthia Utrom, which obviously I think that's one of the Krangs, if I remember. Like she's part of that character is part of the Utrons. They're the race that the Krang comes from, if I imagine, or the race that Krang was at least based off of, from the graphic novels. When they adapted when they did the cartoon, and adapted that from the graphic novels. I liked her as well, and how she had a vendetta against the turtles and of all the other creatures as well. I like the fact that when she was like how Splinter spends the whole movie telling them they're gonna milk you, and then she actually milks them. I thought that was quite funny. And yes, I like that part of the plot. The end credit scene with Splinter, not Splinter, sorry, Shredder being in there. I mean, I thought I kind of we were always gonna know when we knew that Shredder was gonna be part of this at some point, but I am glad that they kind of held him off for this. They're holding him off for the second film, because again, I do think it gets quite we've had Shredder. Shredder was the villain in almost every Turtles movie except for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 and the 2007 movie. But even then, like he was in the 2014 film. He was in the Michael Bay. He was in the second film, although he does get frozen towards the end and gets put away, which is a bit of a waste, really. From all the clips, from what I saw anyway. Again, I've not watched it. I watched Mr. Sunday Movies video he did on it a few weeks ago. Caravan of Garbage. Go shout out my fellow Aussies, Mr. Sunday Movies. So I liked her character as well. I'm glad that they're having those in there, and I do like the fact that we're getting Shredder in the sequel. It would be interesting to see these turtles go up against a villain like Shredder as well. I know they've got that TV show coming out as well, which is going to tie into that, I think. Which I don't know if I'll watch that, because I'm not sure. Again, I'm not really that bothered. I just hope they're not going to do a MCU thing recently where you have to watch the cartoon in order to get the sequel as well. I hope they don't do that, because I'm so sick of that. Like I shouldn't have to watch a TV show to get to understand something, to understand another movie or something like that. I'm sick of that with the MCU already. I just am. I might do an episode about talking about the state of the MCU at the moment, and even get a guest on talk about that shit, because the MCU is not in a great state at the moment. Let's be honest, it's not in a great state at the moment. Secret Invasion, that was it. Secret Invasion, I mean, I thought it was fine. It was, like I said in my review of it, it was mid, to say the least. It was mid. it was mid. It was a very mid show, a very mid project, which is not really what I want for my Marvel shows, really, or my Marvel movies. So I just hope that you don't have to watch that TV show to get the sequel. But overall, I thought the plot was really strong. It had a very coming of age feeling to it as well, which I guess what they were, obviously with them focusing more on the teenage aspect, that's what they were going for. And I think that worked out in their favor really well. I really love the ending as well. I like the fact that they actually get accepted into society. All the mutants, they become this kind of big mutant family in a weird way, which I really enjoyed seeing. I thought that was really sweet. I like that new kind of take on guys like villains from the cartoon that have kind of come over to the other side and have gone, actually, you know what? Let's be good. I just want a home. I don't want to kill people. I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want to live peacefully. I really like that aspect of the Splinter gets with a cockroach, a mutated cockroach, and yeah, but I do love the ending to this movie. I think that it's a very powerful ending. I think it's a really good, solid ending. The fact that, and it's something unique as well. Like the Turtles get accepted into society and they're not going to be in hiding anymore. and they finally get to go to high school, and we're going to see what high school's going to be like from a Turtles point of view. I also like the fact that they actually took off the bandanas, and obviously because the way the characters were designed and different kind of things. That's what I like actually about the designs. Let me go back to the character designs for a second. I love how each turtle was designed in a way. So and you could tell them apart even with their masks off. You could tell them apart, which was kind of an issue I think people would have had with the original graphic novels, because in the original graphic novels, every turtle wore the same bandana. They were designed the same, and that's why they made the bandanas for the cartoons so people could tell them apart. But I do like how they do add little things in to like tell them apart, like how Michelangelo's got braces, Donnie's got glasses, Raphael's got his do-rag, and he's a bit more muscular and a bit more stealthy. And Leo's a bit more thin, and he's a bit more it's a more leader quality to him. I did like that, but I like the fact that they at the end they took off their bandanas, and it was crazy seeing that. It was crazy seeing them in a high school setting and just being accepted amongst humanity as well. I feel like that's going to be a really good. It's going to lead us down to a much more interesting kind of path for this reboot and for this new series we've got coming out. And and I'm sure some people out there have probably got a problem with that, and they're like, no, the turtles need to be hiding in the sewers. But honestly, like, I mean, they're still in the sewer, even though they've been accepted by society, they're still in the sewer. So but also, like, I do think it's just refreshing. It's a new thing, and I like new things, and it's a nice, refreshing kind of new thing to it. That I think added a good that added a lot more good, like, weight to it as well. And I do like the fact that they can become this big happy mutant family. They've got like friends, like I guess they refer to the other ones like their cousins. Well, they are cousins. That's what Superfly calls them. He calls them cousins. So they're all cousins, in a way. So again, they've got this big, massive mutant family. They've got friends. They're popular, and you see them at the prom, and they're all enjoying themselves. And it's just a nice ending. And it's a nice warm ending for them to have. I also liked again, I liked Splinter's arc of how he hates humanity, but then humanity kind of shows him their good side. When April is showing on the TV screen, she's saying, no, the turtles, they're helping you, they're trying to save you from this big monster, that they're the heroes. And then everyone sees humans see Splinter, and at first, because of what happened before with the flashback, Splinter's like scared of them at first, and then all this human does is reach out their hand to him and says, can I help you, sir? And starts treating him like an equal, and it shows that there's always some good in humanity, and shows the best of humanity, which we kind of need in these times, because humanity is not great at the moment. Humanity is very divided and very a bit mean at the moment, with real world events and everything. And yeah, so the plot I thought was really good and really strong. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the story of this movie. Again, the themes of loneliness, acceptance, coming of age, added a new fresh perspective on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And speaking of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let's talk about the cast. The fact that again, this focused more on the teenage aspect of the characters, but the fact that they were voiced by teenagers as well, it helped give those characters that kind of energy that I'm sure the filmmakers were looking for, and hoping to look for. And I like the fact that they're all recorded in the same room, and not just the actors playing the turtles. It was also every character was people were grouped together. The voice roles, they were grouped together with one another for single recording sessions, which apparently they take up to like 7 actors apparently, particularly with scenes where they're talking together. They would put people together. So the turtles were recorded together. Seth and John Cena, who voices Bebop and Rocksteady, do a really good job with that, by the way. They recorded together. Ice Cube, had a bunch of scenes with the actors playing the turtles, Bebop and Rocksteady kind of thing, which is something that he picked up on from when he did Lion King, the 2019 Lion King remake, which usually we don't talk about in this house, because that movie is really bad. But he picked that up, and I feel like for this movie in particular, it added a lot more. It made the characters come alive and feel alive, and it helped with certain scenes, like when April finds out the turtles and then finds the turtles, and they're trying to explain their backstory to her, but they're all talking over one another. I thought that was really funny as well. That was really good as well, and it helped add some nice sort of a bit of realism as well to it, a bit of relatability to him as well. I feel like that's happened in teenage groups as well, and people talking over each other and stuff like that. That happens in adulthood as well. If you watch any of the episodes of me and Alex, we're constantly talking over each other all the time in these podcast episodes. But it helped adds a bit of gravitas and some good weight to the cast, having them record with one another, and being in the same room, and it helped. It really did help. Because a lot of times, most of the time, they're they don't really record in the same room. They record in separate booths, and that's usually it. And which is fine. That works for a lot of anime movies. But sometimes you get some anime films which could have benefited massively from having them be in the same scene, or maybe the actors don't really gel with one another, as well, or they don't have great chemistry with one another, which could have been helped better if they recorded in the same booth, the same scene, in the same room. But I'm glad they did. I'm glad it wasn't just for the Turtles; it was for every characters. They all recorded together, which was quite unique. But the cast were good. All the actors that played the Turtles were terrific in their roles. Let me just quickly get them up here. Let's see here. You got Mitch Abbey as Donatello. You got Shaman Brown Jr. as Michelangelo. Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, and Bradley Nunes as Raphael. They were really solid and really great as their roles. They fit their roles perfectly. They were able to focus on the attributes of those characters, like how Michelangelo is always silly and a bit of a party dude. How Leonardo's the leader, Raphael's the muscle, Donnie's the brains. But they were able to add their own kind of the fact that they were actual teenagers voicing these teenage characters, and they were focusing more on the teenage side of things. I feel like that helped them do it in their own way and add a new spin on the cast, on the iconic kind of characters that people know about and recognize and familiar with, and Ao DeBurry, I want to say. I've probably butchered that name completely. She was great as April O'Neil. Like I said, I liked the fact that April O'Neil was a teenager in this, helped her job with the Turtles as well, and she did a great job as well. I'm going to assume she also recorded with the Turtles actors as well. Again, they had really good chemistry with one another, and she was a very likable character, and just again a fresh new kind of take on the character. Changed things up, but it was a good change, decent change, for this movie. Again, John Cena and Seth Rogen were great as Bebop and Rocksteady. They were really funny at certain points. And again, that just makes sense. I love John Cena as Rocksteady. But I think John Cena's getting great with every movie he's in. I just love John Cena in everything he's in, really. Now, I love how before, John Cena, whenever he was in a movie, everyone kind of groaned and oh no, not John Cena. But recently, he's been coming into his own with his acting. And his voice work and everything. This is the guy who went from doing the Fred movies to now doing a Teenage Mutant Turtles movie. He was also really good in that in Bumblebee, that Transformers movie, done by Travis Knight, which you should watch, by the way, because it's really good. I've not seen Rise of the Beasts yet. I'll probably watch that when it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD or something. I missed that in cinemas, but oh well, it'll be fine. And Rosary Brown was great. Leatherhead, Wingnut, Natasha. Demetrio was great as Wingnut. Let's see here. Jackie Chan was phenomenal casting as Splinter. Why it took him that long to cast him as Splinter? Why didn't they do that sooner? Jackie Chan as Splinter. That sounds like a no-brainer. But the fact that it took this long to get him in the role of Splinter, I mean, that's crazy to me. But he was fantastic as Splinter. I love the idea that he had more of a dad role. He felt more like a father figure to the Turtles, rather than just being a mentor or a sensei like he is in the previous movies. And the fact that they call him Dad and everything, I think that was really good. And he was really great as that character, and he was really funny as well. Like when Donna was like, "Leo, you ratted us out," and he's like, "Hey, don't use that word that way." And they're like, "It's 2023, dude," and he's like, "Sorry, Dad." I thought that was really funny. I think Splinter. I thought Splinter was great in this movie, and his arc as well, from going from being quite prejudiced against humans to learning about that there are there's the beneficial, the good of humanity, and how humans, can be good. He learns that through meeting April, and he learns that from when the humans help him out when his sons are in danger and everything. Yeah. So. And yeah, so Ice Cube was fantastic as Superfly. Like I said before, he was great. My favorite character though had to be Paul Rudd as Mono Gecko. I love it. I love him as Mono Gecko. He was just hilarious, and the fact that they paired him up with Michelangelo just fit rightly. I love that line. I mean, it's been played to death in the trailers, but when he goes, "Humans, is there to go?" I just love that line. I think Paul Rudd does a great job. I mean, you can never go wrong with Paul Rudd. He was even good in Ant-Man and the Lost Quantumania, and that movie was fucking shit. That movie was terrible. Go check out my episode on it if you're curious. if you're curious. Cheeky plug there. Another cheeky plug there. But yeah, again, the cast was. I can talk about the cast all day, but the cast were terrific. They did a great job of what they were given, and what they were given was really good. This movie was written really well. It was really funny, and excuse me, that was a big burp. They were really funny. It was really funny and really charming, and everything. So yeah, the cast were terrific. The soundtrack as well was great. I like the fact that it had different, it had a good variety to it. How sometimes it would feel really techno, other times it would feel quite indie. Had that kind of vibe to it, kind of similar to Spider-Verse's one. I like how unlike the Mario Brothers movie, the licensed songs actually fit the scenes. Like the fact they had worked back the ninja rap from Secret of the Ooze. That was cool. I smiled at that. Hearing Vanilla Ice going, "Go ninja, go ninja, go." I was like, oh, that was terrific. And the fact they did the song that gets what is it the song "Hey," I say hey, that song, the song that gets parodied with He-Man, the He-Man character. I'm just gonna call it the He-Man song. I'm actually gonna look it up. This song. I'm gonna look up the song. Just give me a quick second. Where is it? Music. Here we go. Let's see. Not Can I Kick It? That was in the trailers. Let's see. Let's have a quick look. Can't seem to find it. But yeah, that song. The song I'm talking about during the action sequence where they're being chased by Superfly. That song was integrated into the film really well, and it fit the scene really well as well. Not like the Mario Brothers movie where it just kind of felt like, let's just put some pop songs because it's a kids film and kids films need pop songs. There we go. I don't hate the Mario Bros. Movie. I still love it. I recently bought it on Duplo on Blu-ray. I've got it on Blu-ray now. I still love it. I still love that movie. But yeah, I do think those small little pops. That one pop song anyway was suited the movie very well, and the rest of it was just its own original music, really. Yeah. And yes, actually, no, wait, let me see. I might be able to find it now, actually, what the name of that song. What is the name of that song? The Hey song. Let's see here. Licensed songs, here we go. Let's see here. Here we go. According to Rogan, Rary likened the soundtrack to that of Tony Hawk's video game series. Random assortment of music that fits together and shares the same energy and spirit. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool, actually. No dignity was that was that was pretty good. Here we go. It was the He-Man. Oh, what's up? That's it. That's it. By Four Non-Blondes. That song. What's up? Apparently it transitions into the He-Man remix. That's cool that they put that in there. Damn. But yeah, so the music was really good. The licensed songs worked really well in it. As well, they actually fit the movie, I think, a little bit better than the Mario Brothers movie. And yeah, so that was really good, and the original pieces as well were really strong and really good as well. So yeah, the soundtrack was fantastic. The only really let's talk about some of the downsides to this movie. There's only really two that I think of. Is that the comedy does work for the film most of the time. I was laughing, chuckling throughout the film. It added to help out to the charm. There were a few jokes in there that that just fell flat for me. That I'm just like, oh, that I didn't find that funny. Which was fine because that always happens with these movies. Not every joke is gonna land for you. unfortunately. So yeah, so not every joke will land for you, but that's okay. Like that's just normal. That's just every comedy ever made, really. And some of the action sequences were hard to follow. I don't know why. I just had trouble. Not all the action sequences, most of them I was able to follow fine, but some of them did find a bit hard to track. I was not too sure why. Maybe it was because the animation style, because of the more rough kind of style they were going for. But yeah, not all the action sequences though. Most of them were good. In fact, most of the action in this movie is fucking fantastic. I liked how they were able to use because of animation stuff, they were able to take advantage of the camera angles and do things that you wouldn't be able to do in a live action movie. Is that even a phrase? I don't know. I'm just gonna pray for the best. That's a phrase. That's something people say, right? Live action. That's something people say. They were able to accomplish stuff you wouldn't get in a live action movie. But there were times where I was finding it a little bit hard to follow at certain points. But again, I think that could be because of the animation. It wasn't every action sequence. There was only one or two of the action sequences in there. It wasn't all of them. But yeah, some of them were hard to follow, but it wasn't all of them. Most of the action sequences were fine in this movie. I don't want people thinking I'm shitting on the action in this film, because I'm really not. The action in this film was fantastic. At certain points, it was just hard to follow at certain points. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk about with this film. Let's just talk about the future very quickly of this series. Obviously, we're getting a TV show that's been greenlit for 2 seasons, and I believe it's going to run for 2 seasons for Paramount Plus. Paramount's interesting streaming service, to say the least. I've not bothered subscribing to it. If anything, I've got a feeling I feel like Paramount Plus is probably going to get shut down. If you give it a couple of years, it'll probably get shut down. In fact, I think earlier this year, the stockholders were actually begging for them to shut it down because it was just losing them so much money. I'm probably not going to watch the TV show. I will watch the sequel when that comes out, but I'm not going to watch the TV show. But I'm looking forward to the sequel, and of course the ending with Splinter coming in. How they're gonna how's this version of the Turtles going to handle Splinter? What's this version of Splinter's backstory like? Because obviously that's not following really the traditional backstory, because obviously in the cartoon, in the graphic novel, and the first live action movie, and I think the 2014 one, possibly, he's seen as like a pet of Roto, he's a pet of a master whose name I cannot remember. And then his rivals are Roko Saki, who ends up becoming the Shredder, and so they got that kind of little personal thing with them. And then obviously the cartoon Splinter actually is a human that gets transformed into a rat. They don't really follow that. He's a normal rat who was born in New York. I think he wasn't born in New York, was he? No, he let me just quickly. Was he born in New York? I cannot. I saw this movie weeks ago. Let's see here. I can't remember. I think he was either born in New York or he was born in Japan and came to New York. But he's not really connected to Shredder. As far as I'm aware, he's not really connected to Shredder, unless there's going to be some sort of twist where it's like, oh no, he is connected to Shredder at some point. That could be an interesting twist, to say the least. I'm looking forward to seeing how that gets handled and how these turtles face off against Shredder. Like, do they give up the ninja? Do they give up the ninja titles, the ninja thing, the martial arts thing? Do they give up the martial arts aspect of it, or do they? And if they do, how do they get back into it to fight off Shredder? What's this version of Shredder's deal? Why is he working with the Utrons? Obviously he's not Krang, but why is he working with the Utrons? What have they promised him? I'm looking forward to that. Apparently there's another live action reboot in the works, apparently, which I'm not surprised by. I'm just hoping to. My hope is, what I'd love to see if they did for another live action one is they do what's that comic book run, The Last Ronin? It's getting a video game adaptation. I'd love them to adapt that into a live action movie, and I'd love for them to kind of set it in the same timeline as the first 3 live action Ninja Turtles movies, so they kind of have an excuse, mainly so they can go back to using the animatronic puppets and the animatronic suits, because again, I'm a massive sucker for practical effects. I prefer that over them doing fucking CGI again. in live action. I'd rather them just go back to the more practical side of things and do the suits. I know Jim Henson Company didn't really like doing those first few movies because obviously Jim Henson didn't like how violent those movies were. But obviously, the Jim Henson Company as a whole has kind of warmed up to that a bit more. They're doing the animatronics for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, which looked really good, by the way. I've seen some people complain about them being like, oh, they look really cheap, look really bad, and it's like, no, they look fine, they look good. But first of all, one, that they're supposed to look cheap. Like, that, the whole idea is that the restaurant is supposed to resemble Chuck E. Cheese. These cheap kind of Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. That was always kind of the point of them. And they look fine, they look good. Like, I know people. This is the problem. People are so used to CG now that they see a practical effect. Like, they see an animatronic, they're like, no, that's bad, that's cheap. It's like, nah, man. Like, I'd rather have someone in a fucking Turtles like animatronic suit than CGI. I'd rather have that's a CGI, because CGI, that's the true fake. CGI is fine and everything, but you can't be a good practical effect. You just can't be a good practical effect, really. In my opinion, you just can't. But I'd love to do the last word and sit in the first 3 live action movies and bring back the animatronic puppets. But if not, you can always do another reboot, start over from scratch like you always do with the Turtles, because again, they've pretty much become they're pretty much Scooby-Doo now, where you can change things up, you can adapt to things now, which is really cool. And that's what I'd like to see. One more thing I'm going to mention about the plot, because I forgot to mention this earlier. I really like how Splinter taught them martial arts from watching movies, from watching movies. I thought that was really charming and really funny, and I thought that was a bit more believable than in the Michael Bay produced one where he got it from a book, literally from a book. Okay, sure, all right. Anyway, so if they are doing another live action one, I hope they go back to the more practical effects, the more animatronic suits. I hope they don't do CG again. I think one of the writers for those live action movies was talking about them actually writing a script for another one at some point. I think it was like last year or 2021. I want to say, but don't quote me on that. I tried finding that story today, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I do remember 3C Films mentioning it on one of his side flick episodes not that long ago. At some time previously. But yeah, so overall, Teenage Mutant Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, is a great movie. It's fun, it's charming, it's got great animation, it's got great action sequences. The comedy is fine for the most part. The voice cast do a really good job. It's overall a pretty decent time. And I think that, if you've not seen it yet, go see it. I hope this movie does well at the box office. I think it's doing okay in the box office. I think it's about 50-50, but I've got a feeling they're going to make enough to at least break even and get that sequel in the works, because that movie needs a sequel. And look, the first Spider-Verse movie didn't do fantastic at the box office, but then through good word of mouth, for good reputation, the sequel to that was able to do well. So it could be the same for the Turtles. Like for this movie, that could do well, hopefully. And yes, so that's it. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Turtles, Mutant Mayhem is a fantastic movie. Out of 5, I give it a 4. Out of 10, I give it an 8. Go see it. If you're still playing in your local theater, go see it now. It's a great movie, and you won't regret it. And yeah, everyone. So that's it for now. But before I go, a couple of little bit of housekeeping things here. The first thing is, as I've mentioned this previously before, and I link this in every video that I post on here. I have a BA and a master's in digital film and television production. Unfortunately, trying to find work has been really hard and really tough. So link down below is my website. You'll find my website link down below, where you can find a bit more about me, a bit more of the previous credits and work that I've done. You'll be able to find my showreel. You'll be able to find ways to contact me if you want me to come on working for a job, if you've got a short film in the works or anything else. Currently, I am doing this on a voluntary basis, not a freelance basis yet. But once I get my driver's license sorted out, I will be doing a more paid basis. So right now, if you're a filmmaker or somebody who really needs a crew member, you want to do this, you've got a project, a passion project you want, and you need help on it, just get in touch with me. Or if you know someone who's looking for crew members, send them a website, show them a website around. Basically, just get my website shown around, and please help me find more work in the film TV industry. You don't have to be a regular member here. You don't even need to subscribe, really. Just as long as you share my website around, I'll be happy. I'll be happy. And yeah, so that's that first bit of housekeeping. The second bit of housekeeping is kind of the future of the future episodes I'll be putting out. So after this, I'm not sure what the next episode will be. It'll either be Blue Beetle. It's going to be either Puss in Boots 2, The Last Wish, Blue Beetle, or Oppenheimer. It depends on which one I get around to doing first. After that, but I'm also going to be doing, but I'm not too sure if I'm even going to get to those, because I also want to do, I've said this before, but I do want to do a kind of series of podcasts talking about Doctor Who, because obviously we've got Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, so I kind of want to do episodes talking about each of the new Doctor's runs, kind of similar to how I did this when I did my episode 6 of this podcast, which I'll have linked at the end, where I talked about Doctor Who for 3 hours. I went through every Doctor's era at that time, but I want to do that again, but I want to do it separately. I want to make the episodes a little bit shorter, not like 3 hours long. And I want to make them a tiny bit more shorter, at least an hour long, and I want to try and do a bit of bulk recording, basically. Record those. Might have a guest on, might not, but I want to release them so they coincide weekly. I'll make them kind of these weekly episodes. They get released so they can lead up to the 60th anniversary, which at this point of recording, the dates for the specials have not come out yet. But hopefully, so I might spend some time working on those. Maybe get a guest on to join me for talking about all of those at some point. That'll probably start being uploaded around the end of September, I think. So that might be, that might take me a while to do. Let's see if you don't see any more episodes for a while, that's why. But yeah, I'll try and get to some more. Yeah, again, I'll try to either get to Blue Beetle, Oppenheimer, or Prison Boots 2, The Last Wish, at some point. And yeah, everybody, so that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of My Isolation podcast. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode. I will continue to make more of these, and I'll see you when I see you next.